because it's such a dependent position, you can be the best receiver in the world, and if you have terrible quarterback play or you can't show it, that it generates or it creates, if there wasn't already there, kind of a needed selfishness that then when you do become awesome manifests itself in what I think we're seeing right now with A.J. Brown, which is, I think it's on the board. A.J. Brown is traded this offseason.
Hello.
Oh,
you read any reports?
I'm sure the Patriots would love him. And by the way, I think that's a good example, and I'll try to land the plane back with that, Devontae. I don't think A.J. Brown would be sad about that. I think if A.J. Brown's like, oh, so I'm going from the Super Bowl champion to maybe the worst team in the league, but I am going to get 150 targets, and we have a traditional ring. Right, I got my ring. And so I think if Devontae were watching.
What are your guys' thoughts on that? Let me just open right there with that. That A.J. Brown is such a selfish me player that he would rather go to what may be the worst team in the NFL and he'll get more targets and he'll like it better. I think it's such an absurd and insulting statement to make about A.J. Brown. Now, do you want to make the argument that A.J. Brown would go to the Patriots and he could be reunited, with his head coach, and, he would be excited for the grind of rebuilding a team and restoring greatness? Stuff like that? Yeah, for sure. I think lots of players would like that kind of opportunity, especially if he had a great relationship with Vrabel, and there was this feeling of unfinished business, and now kind of starting from scratch. Because you have a lot of people that are addicted to that love that feeling. You have a lot of people, even in the business world, they're very much in startups. They love the rise. They love to create something out of nothing, make it worth a ton of money, and then they move on to another company that is now struggling, rather than maintaining that great company. That's a real thing, And could that be in AJ's DNA? For sure. That's a different framing of him saying, I'm such a selfish, egotistical diva player that all I care about is me. So I'd rather be on a bad team and get all the targets and all the attention, so I get to play, well, but don't win. That's a completely different framing. And those are, entirely two different conversations. And now this idea that it's on the board for the Philadelphia Eagles to move on from A.J. Brown. The only way that that's even remotely on the board is if the Eagles have such a plan that no one even remotely sees coming. There's a quote that I would have to really dig to find, and I don't got the energy for that right now, because I'd have to listen to essentially like a 2-hour podcast to find it. And it's a great line, so I'm going to butcher it. But essentially it's like, listen, I may be wrong, but if I am, it's for reasons that you don't even that you couldn't even dream of understanding. So it's like, even if A.J. Brown got traded, not for any of the reasons why that anyone could even understand. And it would be because of a significantly bigger, greater potential, because, how he really has his eyes set on this wide receiver in the draft, or, whatever it may be, right? He's somehow making a play, and again, this is a made-up scenario, like he's getting Derrick Henry as well and Myles Garrett, and he's like, we're going to do something that the NFL has never seen. We are just going to have the most dominant run game in the history of the NFL, and literally no one's going to be able to stop us. Our defense is going to be so physical, so brutal, that we're just going to be able to run the ball, eat the clock. We're gonna average 40+ minutes a game in time of possession. And it's going to be, Jalen Hurts is barely even going to have to throw the ball, man. And we're just going to shock the NFL, right? Like, it's just going to be a plan that, like, people are like, what did I just watch? How did that just work? How do I repeat it? Obviously, an extreme example. Although I did have many daydreams in my mind thinking of how Roseman could have went out and got Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley last offseason and just be like, guys, we're going to do something that the NFL has never seen. Like, this is going to be special. And I do maintain that would have been money well spent. But that's some fan fiction. But I think with this whole framing of A.J. Brown, man, it's a tough one. Listen, I have called out A.J. Brown. I've had my concerns with A.J. Brown. I wish he was a little different publicly. I do, and I'm firm on that. But this is where we take things too extreme, you know. This is where we take things too far, and we paint someone with too broad of a brush, and it's just not fair, considering the work and what he's done and the contributing factor that he was for this team to be as successful as it has been for the last 3 years, and even in the Super Bowl. And it's kind of crazy that we can't see how important it is that the way how the Eagles operate is because of all of the pieces together. I mean, like, this is the cheesiest example, but like, they're the pieces of a puzzle and they just fit together so well. But it's because of how this offense is constructed. It's not just like, oh, they have a great O-line and a great quarterback and therefore Saquon Barkley now can run. No, it's because they have great weapons. They have two different style receivers in Devontae and AJ, and they have Dallas Goedert, and they have Saquon Barkley, and they have the great O-line, and they have Jalen Hurts. Like, it's because of and why this all works, and why the sum is greater than its parts. That's why they've been able to win in many different ways. That's why when people said, oh, okay, we're going to take away Saquon, and it's like, okay, and we're still going to beat you. Okay, well, we're going to let Saquon eat, but we're not going to let you pass. Okay, fine, we're going to beat you. You know, like, it's why the Eagles have been able to win. You know, balanced out with obviously a great defense as well. And a winning culture. The foundation of this team is, you know, we, not me. Which, you know, you can't always take for granted. It sounds so generic, and don't get me wrong, pretty much every single coach under the sun preaches that. But not all coaches are great at actually conveying that message and instilling it within the team and roster. They're just not. Because it is something that you are told, you know, if you played sports, pretty much from day one. But not everyone buys into it. And the Eagles clearly do, and did, and will. So, listen, does AJ have some of his quirks? Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, I've criticized him for it. You know, even when I was going to make a clip of this, but I just decided not to because it just didn't matter enough. But, you know, Colin said his thing about AJ Brown, about moving on from AJ or something like that. I forget exactly how he phrased it, but I reacted to that clip. But then I saw AJ responded back and had some like crying woman being like, why don't you like me? Why don't you like me? Or something like that. And like, some people are like, oh yeah, that's right, he's clapping back to Colin. And I kind of see it as like, dude, just like, why even respond? Why even engage with that? And if that's your engagement, like, that's why it is. It's not that it's, you know, no one, that they don't like you. You know, that's not what it is. That's not that it's just like, I don't like you, in terms of like, from Colin's perspective. I mean, like, Colin has given many takes talking about the importance of AJ. It's just a disagreement in personality and approach. And yeah, I think AJ Brown publicly does, you know, more things publicly that I don't like than not. That is the reality, and I have no issue, you know, saying that out loud. I've talked about it throughout the season. I don't like how he went on that podcast and talked about that he had problems with Jalen Hurts and this and that, and it's just like, you know, I don't like how he's handled certain, you know, interviews in the past and sideline interactions and whatnot. And I think that is a real thing. But this idea that the Eagles will just move on from him and not think that that's not going to hurt them. Again, unless it's part of a larger plan where they really, really know exactly what they're doing and they have everything taken care of, then sure. But it would be part of a much bigger plan rather than, AJ's causing problems, let's get him out of the building. Because that's essentially what Nick is more implying. Nick's not like, Howie's got something under his sleeve. And I think, we know Howie, he's really smart. And so he's going to move on from AJ. And he's going to be able to get, whatever, a first round here, a first round there, free up cap space. He's going to get Myles Garrett. And then he's going to draft John Watson. Like if that's the whole train of events, then sure. But there's the idea of just, AJ Brown's kind of being a bit of a diva. He wants too much. We're just going to move on from him and just, hope for the best. And it's like, that's not how things work. Everyone talks about, the Kansas City Chiefs, they've been able to win since moving on from Tyreek Hill. They wish they had Tyreek Hill. And these last 2 years, so they think they've had 3 seasons without Tyreek. One, they still had Travis Kelce. One of the greatest football players of all time, position players, especially in the playoffs. One of the best tight ends of all time. That's like not really up for debate, right? You have Andy Reid, you have Patrick Mahomes, and you had all these other role players, or I shouldn't say role players, but these other players that were not, on that level of a Tyreek Hill, but they played above and beyond. And then the next couple of years, you had the top defense in the NFL. You were beating a team like the Ravens not through your offense, but because you held them to 10 points. Okay, so that matters. That matters. And as like Nick likes to say, okay, you won the Super Bowl in 22, but Jalen Hurts fumbled and he cost them the game. That's what Nick says. So then technically you could have said that the Chiefs would have then only won 1 Super Bowl since Tyreek Hill left, and that 1 year would have been on the back of the defense, having the best defense in the NFL. And then this past year, how good was this offense? Not very good. Not to mention, as Nick kept saying, Rashee Rice, he kept calling him Rashee Jerry Rice or Jerry Rashee Rice. Talking about how special he is and this and that. So, this idea that you just move on from a receiver like A.J. Brown, I don't know, man. Unless he's a true problem in the locker room. And that's the thing. If he moves on, then that means if the Eagles moved on from him, that's then because the locker room as a whole feels it and kind of wants him out too. Because there's no way that they're just going to ship him out after winning the Super Bowl. There's just no way. I'm just not seeing it unless there is an understanding AJ's actually legitimately causing problems. And yeah, we all feel it. Devontae feels it. Saquon feels it. Jalen feels it. Mailata feels it. Zach Bond feels it. Cooper DeJean, right? Like everyone's kind of like, yeah, he's obviously a great player, but like, a lot of times when he starts talking, we all kind of just put our head down and try not to make eye contact. If it's that type of feeling, then sure. I feel like we would know that already, though. I feel like we would hear that. And I just don't get that sense. But who knows? Maybe this will be the one Philadelphia Eagles take that Nick gets right. Maybe. Or maybe it's just wishful thinking on his part. Maybe he's got a little bit of, some PTSD facing the Philadelphia Eagles. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Philadelphia Eagles moving on from AJ and shipping him out of Philly? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.